Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boy.
Welcome to Tormenting Voice for Harry and Isaac. This is a Magic the Gathering podcast coming to you from Yorkshire in the UK.
In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things competitive Magic, discuss our approach to the game, and give our opinions on all aspects of it.
We're going to do metagame analysis, data-driven tier lists, and our own personal hot takes on all of the above.
We're going to do deep dives on specific formats, archetypes, and decks. We're going to try and improve our play alongside yours, and most importantly, we're trying to grow the community of the game that we love.
Alright, let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Tormenting Voice. We've got some esteemed guests here. We're going to be discussing the Strixhaven launch and what it's meant for us and how we've been playing Magic and how we feel about the set in general, and especially how it relates to Standard, because obviously we've been playing a good bit of that between us. So today we're here with obviously myself, Isaac, and Harry, and we've got two guests, Toby and Jude. So Jude, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Jude. I'm predominantly a mid-range Magic player. I love good boomer Magic with Jund. That's pretty much all you need to know about me.
And Toby?
Yeah, I'm Toby. I like bad decks and then complaining about them when they don't win.
Sounds like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Hi, Toby.
I played elves when you shouldn't have played elves. I played goblins when you shouldn't have played goblins. I'm that guy at an F&M that storms out.
Okay, fair enough.
I've never seen you storm out.
He comes back.
He goes out to smoking like bit and he goes, "This guy beat me, absolute scrub." We all do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're all going to sort of share now what we've done this week in Magic, so how we've interacted with the game. So I'll go first briefly. I've been looking at stuff for the Pioneer Cube from this set, sort of trying to shortlist what I want in it, what I don't want in it, buying some Mystical Archive cards to go in it because they look really nice, mostly. And then obviously been playing Standard, so you know I did what I normally do. I did my Isaac thing where I take a deck that's already good and I change a few cards in it, try and get those extra percentage points. So I've been trying out Sultai Ultimatum with a couple of Solve the Equation, Professor Onyx at the top end, who's been really impressive, and a couple of other cards, a couple of other bits and pieces like in the sideboard. Like I tried out Test Talents for a bit, just trying to get those little percentage points in. What about you, Toby?
I've been on Black-Green Pest, which like the deck I'm most excited about is like either Green-White or Green-Black Magecraft, because I think that's going to be really spicy. But it was a lot more rare wildcards than Green-Black Pests, and the deck has really proven that Learn is better than I think people give it credit for in Constructed, especially when you're on like you're playing best of one and that 7-card sideboard is essentially free. Sedgemoor Witch has been exactly what Young Pyromancer was, a card that is either incredibly game breaking or really disappointing when it gets shocked. I will say I do think it's awesome that we've got an Aristocrats deck back in Standard that doesn't rely on taking your opponent's creatures and sacking them.
Yeah.
That sucks, and that shouldn't be how Aristocrats play. Aristocrat is about making a bunch of your own tiny creatures and then sacking them for value. As soon as you start taking opponents, for me, it just gets really repetitive and tedious. But yeah, the big takeaway for me is that Learn is actually good. Good
stuff. And then, Jude, I know you haven't been playing much, but I'm sure you've been thinking about it as much as the rest of us have.
For sure. I mean, that green-black deck that Toby was on about does look like a lot of fun. There are a lot of lines in that deck that look great, like that 2-mana instant that draws your card, lose life, then lets you sack creatures to copy it. Looks insane in if you've got enough tests, especially with Sedgemoor Witch, because it just every creature you sack just gets replaced by another creature, and if you're sacking pests, you're not losing any life. So it seems like it can spiral out of control quite quickly. But yeah, like Magecraft looks really good. I know I saw on someone's stream that they were thinking it's probably one of the best mechanics in the set, and that it's like almost better than Prowess potentially. But it's got like a lot of higher ceiling than Prowess because there's a lot more you can do with it.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for Strixhaven and looking forward to playing some more.
Yeah, speaking of Magecraft and Plum the Forbidden, we've saved the best for last because we've got Harry here who's had quite a big week of grinding. So Harry, mate, what have you been up to?
Yeah. Plum the Forbidden's insane, right?
Yeah, it's just
Right.
mental.
Okay. Everybody missed this, I think.
Mm.
But I think Toby and Jude have sort of set me up quite well here, because I basically thought to myself that Sedgemoor Witch is playable in Rakdos Sack, and I ran with it. It's also something that I was saying before the set, so I thought I'd double down and put my money where my mouth is, and I broke top 200 mythic this week
Already.
Yes,
So,
yes, already.
Jeez.
It's very good. Like I kind of agree with you, Toby, that like the red way of playing aristocrats isn't the way that it should be played, but it's probably the most broken way to do it. So, like, yeah, that means that it's probably the best way. But Sedgemoor Witch is just, it's. I think I agree with you with what you're saying, where it's like sort of underwhelming sometimes, but I think I'm erring on the other side that it's actually really, really powerful. And this is what I said. I did say this before the set.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that this card's incredible. It doesn't matter that it dies to Bone Crusher. Like, you just take
80% of the creatures in this set do, so
yeah, exactly. Like it's a very and it's an additional caveat. So the way that it works generally with Bone Crusher, okay, yeah, if you slam it turn 3 and it gets stomped, they've paid 3 life for that. So they've paid 3 life to kill one of these creatures. Yes, they've got a Bone Crusher to play off the side. That's fine. Handle it later. But the way that the Rakdos player plays this, or the Aristocrats player plays this, is lets the ward resolve and then responds to the Bone Crusher trigger, and you profit massively. So, like, go on.
I was just gonna sorry, you finish because this will take a while.
Yeah, no worries. I wanted to just sort of add on to the learn point that you made. iSwitch has really impressed me because it gives you access to to a lot of your sideboard. Rakdos can also play Gigantha, so you just essentially playing 8 additional cards or whatever in best of 1, and then obviously you choose how many learn cards you want in your best 3 sideboard, because they're not all worthwhile. Like, you want Forge S, you want some other stuff for specific matchups, but
Yeah,
Rakdos is incredible right now. I'm
going to show the list that Harry's been playing with on the screen now for the viewers at home. So just so you can take a mental note of that. For the listeners, it's kind of what you'd expect. I think there's a lot of new cards here, to be honest. And to say that like Rakdos Sack was already something on the periphery, to have all these new cards and something as potentially broken as Plum the Forbidden, I want to say props to you for one, like getting the numbers where you like them, and cause I know obviously like some of the things in here aren't stock at all. So like there's one Acroan War which might be stock, but it's it's there. It's a deliberate decision, and the one Cling to Dust as well. I really like that.
The Cling's really good.
I think in general, like this list looks very, very clean. And it's definitely, I would recommend if anyone out there wants to play Rakdos Sack, I would start here and maybe make some slight tweaks with it for your preferences and just get going, because yeah, it looks really good. And what were you going to say, Toby, about I think learn or something like that?
So, well, what I was going to say, because I've been on Green Black Pest, which I think, from what I can imagine, is the less reactive but potentially more explosive cousin of Red Black. Like, it can't mess with your opponent's creatures as well, but it has those turns where you put 18 triggers on the stack quite easily, and your opponent's health goes from 20 to 0. The main point I wanted to make is that if you hate adventure, you need to play an Aristocrats deck in Standard right now. I don't know if technically I think they're the best. It's the best deck for any adventure strategy, but Village Rites punishes Bone Crusher Giant in such an absurd way. Your opponent tries to Bone Crush one of your creatures. Not only do you deny them the other side, but you draw 2 cards. Like, that Village Rites may as well, to me, say counter an adventure, draw 2 for 1 black. So if you're getting really sick of those cards and you want to punish the people that are playing him, put together green black. I also think Witherbloom Apprentice has been really good.
Yeah.
I didn't have my eyes on at first, and like the list that I originally like based my list on only had 2 of them, but he's proven to play really, really nicely. And the last card I wanted to say that has really surprised me, I don't know if you're playing it, Harry, but Necrotic Fumes.
Necrotic Fumes, yeah, the exile from exiling the lesson that exiles a target creature when you exile one of your own, essentially.
So good.
It's very good. It's a good spot removal, especially from your sideboard. I don't think it's playable elsewhere, other than this shell. But yeah, I just wanted to add another point. Like I think you described the difference between Golgari and Rakdos really well there. That like Golgari is probably a bit more explosive. Plum the Forbidden is just it's mad. Like it's Village Rites but pushed.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds ridiculous.
Because Village Rites is already pushed, right?
But it's the truth. Like Village Rites, it is Village Rites pushed. Yeah, it costs a bit more mana, but like when you're getting actual Magecraft triggers off of it as well, the reactions that you can have with if you've got multiple Sedgemoor Witches out and you play Plum the Forbidden, and you sack all your pests, and then you make more. It's like, what have I just done? Like, this has all been free. I've blocked everything during the combat step, and I've drawn X amount of cards. Like, it's really good. So my advice would be to play Rakdos, because you get to play the broken cards in Rakdos, like Claim the Firstborn, and like Bone Crusher Giant, and like War Strider. But one thing that I did want to ask you guys is, like, why aren't we seeing Dina? Dina seems perfect for the Golgari version. Like, in fact, the trigger seems better than.
Is she the 1 mana one?
No, so she's 2 mana. She's
the
black
the
green
uncommon
legendary. Yeah, exactly. And whenever you gain a life, your opponent loses 1 life. So it seems like perfect for.
Sorry, I did want to say 2 other things about Plum the Forbidden, because there's a lot of things that need to be said about it. I remember looking at it and kind of thinking, this card seems like it'd be really good, you know, when you're in these dream scenarios where you've got 11 pests out that you want to sack. The card still feels broken if you sack 2 creatures.
Yeah.
Like, and the other thing about it that is really ridiculous is that, unlike Village Rites, where if you get stuck with no creatures and a Village Rites in hand, it's useless. It cycles itself for 2 mana. Like,
Yeah, man.
I've kept hands with like 3 lands, 3 Plum the Forbiddens, and another spell, and it's never not paid off. Like, the card is just insane. I'm definitely adding Dina.
Sorry, I had I thought about Dina in the deck, and I think looking at the cards, I think Witherbloom Apprentice might just be a better card for that style of deck, though. Just because you're casting a lot of spells, and Witherbloom Apprentice is triggering off those spells. Like, yeah, they'd work well together, but I feel like you might want Witherbloom this over Dina. Because especially with Plum the Forbidden, it becomes sack X creatures and your opponent loses that much life and you draw that much cards. It's insane. And then especially if it's pest, your opponent's losing 2 life per. It's pretty insane.
With Dina, your opponent's losing 1 life whenever a pest dies anyway. Like, I think you might be right, but I'm gonna need to just chuck 2 in the deck and see what happens.
I would say try it. I think a lot of these shells, like Jude just said there, a lot of it's in theory still, and I think, like, to be honest, I'm a bit of a mini rant here. I think personally the reason why I don't have very strong opinions right now on matchups and etc. is because the arena economy is terrible. And everyone keeps saying it, and it's become like a point of like, oh wow, it's boring. I need to remind everyone that the arena economy is actually terrible. Like, I play Paper Magic, which is supposed to be cardboard crack, it's supposed to be expensive, and these pixels are more expensive than my cardboard. Like, that's a problem. I'd rather buy cardboard every day of the week. So for me, I think laddering, I haven't really noticed a difference between the format. The one time I've played against like a Leon and Lightscribe, I was like, this is really powerful. It's a shame no one's exploring it right now because it
Yeah.
costs 90 quid to build a deck. Like, it's one of those things, I think. So I think Dina being an uncommon, you might see more people try that out. And I think
Helps, yeah.
like Toby said, the Golgari Pest, what's the cost of building that? It's the Snarls, right?
Snarls
Rakdos
and
is already
Witherbloom, which
Rakdos was already a shell that exists. Like, I think a lot of people are trying these things out as the first thing because it's like, well, what costs hardly any wild cards and is interesting. It's like these shells are obviously very powerful, and Plum the Forbidden's arguably the best card from the set. So people are defaulting to these. I think from my testing, right? I'm not sure. Jude will probably agree with me. The best decks from last standard are still going to be the best decks, but now there's just another couple of contenders. Like, I don't know
for
about
sure.
I don't know about the Sultai matchup against Harry's deck, for example, but I know Shadows of Edit kills everything. Like, and that card's a house, and I play 4 of them as default. Like, I think Rogues will probably get bodied by it, to be frank, which is like just looking at like Bone Crusher Giant and Claim and all of these things that work in your deck's favor and being so cheap and efficient. Like, I think Rogues is potentially looking worse, but then at the same time, I've just said Sultai looks good. So whilst that's true, do you know what I mean? I think now we've just, we've just got a more dynamic metagame now. So like Jude, for example, if you were going to play a standard tournament now, what do you think you would play? I know you'd probably default to like a mid-range deck.
I mean, Sultai is probably still a pretty decent choice, but I did play the like when Immersion Predator came out, I did play the Rakdos deck then, so I'd be interested in putting the one that Harry's put together, try that out, because I do like the playstyle of Rakdos as well. Like, I mean, one of the two of the colours of Jund, so it's an easy choice, really.
I have played Jund Sack, so I know some people are trying that out. Seems super temperamental, but when it works, my god, it works.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because Corvold is still a house. Like,
yeah, I've seen like silly things like Pest Summon. Like, it's like I'll go Croxer, then cycle the Croxer, Pest Summon, and make 6/1/1s on turn 4, and then it's like I untap and I've got Plum the Forbidden, and I've got 6/1. Like there are turns with this deck where you're like, dearie me, this like. Do you know what's interesting, right? I think, I think I've said it in like the Eldraine episodes where I talked about it. Like, after rotation, the power points of this format, like the things that are like the points of pull, they all require real deck building. It's not like Bone Crush Giant where you just lob it in. Or it's definitely not like Oko, or Uro. Like, Plum the Forbidden is a very powerful card, and it's powerful enough for all the formats, in my opinion. Like, you'll see this in Historic, at the very least. You'll see it in Pioneer, with like Rally the Ancestors, for example. Like, they're going to go away anyway, bin them all, draw more cards, like, things like that. I think this card is, it is now on the level of, like, I thought Showdown Lost Skulls was going to be on this level. This card's way above that, right, in terms of power level. It requires deck building restrictions, but this is absolutely up there with, like, the Alrund's Epiphanies of the format, and maybe not ultimatums, but, like, it's definitely close. Like, this is absolutely, when we talk about if you're playing standard, play one of these 5 cards, this is already there, in my opinion. Like, it's very, very close to just being like one of the best things you can do.
I'm going to be playing. I'm looking at playing either 2 in the main or possibly 4 in the sideboard of green black elves. I'll be splashing black for it in Historic, but it feels worth it.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think Sedgemoor, which is a big part of that. Like, I think we all sort of judged it wrong. We were like, oh, you've got to build a spell-based deck around it, and it's like, you don't really.
You just need one.
Yeah, you
just need one spell.
It just sits there, and then like 4 of that and 4 Plum the Forbidden is like 4 Plum the Forbidden enables these 4 witches. Like, that's all you need. Like, I think I think everyone collectively overlooked the set as a whole, but because this wasn't individually spoiled and it was in everything, we all overlooked it collectively. Do you know what I mean?
I think. Go on.
No, you go.
I think that I want to hold my hand up and say that I didn't overlook this card. I said it was one of the best cards in the deck, Sedgemoor Witch. But Plum the Forbidden doesn't need Sedgemoor. It doesn't. I think it is one of the main takeaways of the first. Is it the first week?
Yeah.
But I think what the other takeaway should be is that Clever Lumenmancer is an absolute bomb. It's a one-mana
Yeah.
bomb, and I love it. Like,
It's insane.
it's great. The shells. I think you hit quite a good point earlier, Isaac. That arena is a bit of a shame. Like I'm in
no,
quite.
wait, it's dog shit. Let's be frank. It's like it's not even close to being fair. You know what I mean? But go on.
It's frustrating. I say it's frustrating every time, but I'm in a position where I play it regularly, and I've been playing since closed beta. So my economy is not representative of average economy. So the way I feel about it isn't as stark. So yes, you're probably right. It probably is dog shit. But to get to the point, Clever Lumenmancer, Magecraft, the actual keyword is not only super fun to play with, awesome to build around, it's powerful. And, that's all we can really ask for in terms of a new mechanic. We don't want it to be too broken like Adventure, but we do want it to be fun to play, fun to build around, and, actually powerful.
Yeah.
Because we've seen too many sort of new mechanics come in where it's either they're broken, so throw all the rules out of the window, or unplayable.
Yeah, and I think if this is the focus point of your format, that's a really good thing for your format. Do you know what I mean? Like if you go double Lumenmancer, and if you don't kill both of them, you die. I think everyone's happy with that. Yeah. So with regards to Magecraft in general, I personally really like it. I think I've been playing Sultai, so it's a deck that would be punished by it quite heavily. I think. Which is good because we've been in a situation where we think Sultai is unbeatable by aggressive decks because we've seen like mono red, mono white play against it, and it's just like half a turn too slow to be consistently faster than it and getting under it. This Magecraft deck, like things that the Sultai deck would normally do, like Overlord on Shadow's Verdict and use Essica's Chariot to sort of like bridge the gap and clog up. None of it's good enough because the creature's outside Essica's Chariot, and it's like, and you are dead before that happens, and some of them are even playing like Plum. So unless you follow up that Verdict with exactly Ultimatum and you just close the game there, you're just really dead. I don't know, I know Toby brewed up a deck and put it in our group chat, and we like the look of that. Do you have any thoughts on Lumenmancer and Lightscribe, Toby?
I could read you guys the list if you're interested.
If you just sort of give like the key takeaways rather than like reading the whole list, like what do you think is particularly powerful about that about your build?
Well, I will say I haven't actually played it yet because I've not got the wild cards to craft it. But the things I really like about Green White is that you get 4 Crash Through, 4 Defiant Strike, 3 Guiding Voice, which are all Magecraft triggering draw cards that are going to make your creatures huge. And that's a big takeaway of Magecraft, is that if you want it to be good, you need to keep your hand full. The Plum the Forbidden does that entirely by itself for the black variants of the deck, but for the green-white, I think, Charge Through, Defiant Strike, and then Guiding Voice is nice enough because it has lesson. I think if you were building a best of 3 variant, you wouldn't. But the thing I really like about green-white is you get to play 4 Lumenmancer, 4 Clarion Spirit, 4 Light Scribe, 4 Dragon Scale Elite. And I think that's all the creatures you need. And then all of your little cantrips and stuff are just really good. You get Fighters 1, which can protect either a Dragon Scale Elite and a Light Scribe, or a Lumenmancer and a Spirit. You get Snakeskin Veil, which is really cool. Blizzard Brawl is still a really solid. And again, I've yet to try the deck, but as it stands right now, it's also a deck that doesn't feel like it needs to play that many lands. And you get to play Lurrus. And if you can play Lurrus, you're going to have a better time than if you're not playing Lurrus.
Yeah, I think Lurrus sort of fills the gap of Plum a bit in that deck, doesn't it? Like, like I know all these stuff cantrips as well, like a lot more of these stuff cantrips. So, you're in a much better position. I definitely think that's the best aggressive threat suite for the Magecraft decks. Like if you just looked at everything with the word Magecraft on it and picked the best set of threats, and Clarion Spirit because you might as well.
Yeah.
You would get to this conclusion. So I definitely like that. With regards to like the other decks, what I will say is I haven't seen a lot of Teamer at all, really. I think Teamer's. I don't think it's a bad deck. I just think people aren't playing it right now because it's got nothing. Like, I think even Sultai, like, it's generically powerful. So I'll talk about what I've done with Sultai just for a little bit because I've added fairly quickly to say I haven't been playing much. I made a few slight changes. I've added a couple of solve the equation to try it out, and it often gets sideboarded out. But I think in game one in particular, it's very powerful to find your wraths and find your ultimatums against matchups where that just wins. I've also found it like it's very like weirdly niche, but in the mirror, if suddenly there is a stage in the Sultai mirror where all the you're both aware there's no counter magic, so you just start slamming ultimatums into each other, and you're like playing this like really massive game of who can scale up faster, and being able to ultimatum for like a big spell, another big spell, and then solve the equation. If they give you solve, you just gotta get another big spell or another ultimatum. Like it's very like weirdly niche, but it does come up. And it makes your sideboard much more powerful as well. Like, you've got one extinction event in your deck, but now you have three. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's all sorts of things like that where this card it's not good, but it's very good in this deck. And then the other change I made was I added one Professor Onyx alongside the Valkyrie. And what I will say about Professor Onyx is right now she's not going to be seeing much play outside of this as a one-of, but I think I found myself in specific situations getting her over Valkyrie. Like, I'd rather have one of my cards out of three than two, one of yours, one of mine, with Valkyrie's plus. And then her sackability is very, very nichely applicable against things like Imistrum Predator. Like, her minus is very, very powerful. And I do think now I'm a lot higher on Professor Onyx than I was at the start. Clawing the life back as well with her is very useful, especially if you cast her off of ultimatum, because you let her resolve first, and then you know what I mean. Like and then if you've got any mana, you can just start casting spells. There's like lots of weird niche applications where it's very, very good. And I think after rotation as well, this will be the top end for mid range decks. Like, I genuinely think it's good enough. It's a lot better than I thought it was. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to see how it develops ultimately, because Sultai has a lot of options and a lot of flexibility. And it's a good shell, but I think we'll see how it starts to appear. What are your thoughts about Sultai, Jude? I'm not sure if obviously you've played the deck a good amount. What do you think about the sort of suggestions I've given?
Yeah, I mean, solve the equation does sound like it's a great fit for the deck. Like you said, it finds anything that you need at the time. I will say, like, against say Harry's Rakdos deck, the board wipes. He's got a bit of insurance now in Plunder Forbidden. Like, that card, like, almost like hoses the board wipes. Obviously, you get rid of all their creatures still, but he's just filled his hand with 5 or 6 cards. So it's a tough one. So I think Sultai having some slightly worse matchups is a good thing, though. Like, because I still think the deck's going to be very good. Because if you get to turn 7 and you can cast a relatively safe ultimatum, you're probably still just going to win. Because the amount of value you get off that card is insane. So I don't know if the deck wants to play that new Quandrix Cultivator.
I think it probably does. I haven't tried that out yet. I think he needs it.
He's good. Another good one to bounce to Yorion. But a deck I've been thinking about in my head is another Golgari type list, and it's a bit more mid-rangey than, say, the Aristocrat style deck that Toby's playing. And I kind of want to play like Mortality Spear, because I think that removal spell seems insane, and I think the perfect cards to go alongside that, I say Scavenging Ooze, which I think is good in the format against like rogues and the Rakdos sack deck, and then the Great Henge, another good one, like tap for 2 mana and then it reduces your other spell for 2 mana. It's like, it seems pretty fun.
Yeah, I think, especially if these Magecraft decks do get really good, then I think people that haven't played for a while are going to be shocked at, because that deck on paper will look bad compared to Sultai, and bad compared to Magecraft, because people are used to playing very polarized decks. But I think if Magecraft does beat Sultai, and Rogues does beat Sultai, and Sultai goes away for a while, this is the next natural step, do you know what I mean? Like, a big pile of removal and big creatures and great henges will beat those aggro decks consistently. So I think, you know, we might be back to Boomer Magic, which is good. That's what we all want. I think everyone wants that. Like, you know, we're back to 3 like aggro control mid range. What were you gonna say, Toby?
Just that Plum the Forbidden definitely makes board wipes more difficult for Sultai, but the awful nightmare that is Shadow's Verdict,
Still
Exile,
exiles.
and after, like the Golgari build, Agadeem's Awakening is one of your big pullback cards. When you bring back an Ibat, a Lovestruck Beast, and a Witherbloom Apprentice. And yeah, Shadow's Verdict, even if I've got Plum in hand, it still kind of ruins that backup plan. I know you've still drawn 5 cards, but, you know, sometimes 5 of those cards are lands.
Yeah, I think as well, like, the Sultai deck is better than a regular control deck at beating Plum, because if it goes Verdict, and then, you know, you have a turn, you Plum, and you draw a bunch of cards, and then you redeploy 2 threats, for example, that's like a relatively good follow-up. They could just go Ultimatum, like, and then the game's over. Like, you know, I do think Ultimatum's still a very powerful Magic card. I do think it's worse than it was before, but it's still just so good.
I think the key is what we're sort of highlighting on, that there's 2 board wipes that, well, I call them board wipes. There's Extinction Event and Shadow's Verdict. They're both exile. And Shadow's Verdict is a complete nightmare for all of these aristocrats. Even if you respond, like you say, like the threats aren't necessarily fast enough to respond. So that's why we will see Duress a lot in sideboards. I did want to mention on Magecraft, like, I think whilst I want the red or green shells to be good, I don't think they're going to be, because of what we were just talking about. We need disruption. So for me, I think if there's going to be a decent, like, Magecraft aggro, then it's going to be Orzhov. And I haven't put like loads of time into this or anything, but it's probably got Lurrus rather than Witch, and you just keep your threats.
It has Humiliate
really
as well. Like, yeah, you can main deck Humiliate, and you're happy with that. Like, as someone that's played a lot of Sultai, like that, like I already lost 2 Lumimancers in Boros. Like, right now it's got 100% win rate against me. If it humiliated me as well, suddenly this is a bad matchup. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it is. You better have your Extinction Event on turn 4 and your Shadow's Verdict just in case, or you will die. Like, you don't. And like, you know, I do like Solve the Equation, but you don't, against that deck. You don't have that time to cast that Solve the Equation.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what I'll work on over the next couple of days, because I'm happy with Rakdos. I think it's like. So I haven't played enough games against Sultai, and I would like us to scrim that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't win game 2 and 3 handedly, then I don't think it's a good matchup. Like if you're bringing in 4 Duress and 2 Croxes and you're still losing, then it's a bad time.
I don't even think. Do you know what? I just think about. I don't think I like Croxer as a sideboard plan against it, because the front, right? It's gonna sound. The front half of it's better because it's always gonna happen. Like with Shadow, like if the main problem in the matchup is Shadow's Verdict, then what that says to me is I need Immisher and Predator. Do you know what I mean? Like that is like that's the crease. Like the crease is if you're an aggressive deck and you want to beat that card and you have Plum, you need a threat that dodges Shadow's Verdict, exactly Shadow's Verdict. And I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Immisher and Predator is the first thing that came to my head. It was like a generically good threat in that deck. It might be that, but Crocs is a more powerful card.
No, I can see that.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's a more powerful card, but that sits. Just go. You're fine.
Hear my dogs. I need
you're
to
fine.
Sorry.
No worries, man.
But yeah, I think Immisher and Predator is like it's what sits in that slot perfectly. Like that I would find, because then it's just Professor Onyx as your only out as a one-off.
Well, I mean, you know, it's definitely worth trying. Like this is one of the issues. Like when you don't get to play all the time. I mean, I am playing quite a lot, obviously, but it's like you don't get to pick your matchups.
Yeah.
This is where like the pros get all the best practice because they practice in pods
Yeah.
and they go, all right, playing this, and we're gonna hash out this matchup and we're gonna find it. And like we saw it in the Kaldheim Championship where Shahar had his escape cards against Arnie and smashed him with Teamer. So it's really important, this kind of stuff, because a lot of what we're saying right now, obviously it's week one and it's good that it's speculative, but it is speculative and that's fine. There's caveats to it because it's largely down to economy, so people don't get to play what they want to play all the time, and it's down to like practice groups. You don't get a chance to actually play properly. But you know, Kaldheim's really good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Strixhaven.
Yeah, no,
My bad.
both. To be honest, but yeah,
both.
I think like, just to conclude out, what I want to do is I'll just conclude with my general thoughts, then we'll talk about like what decks we think lost the most, and then we'll move on to probably the hot take. But my sort of thoughts on it is this set proves almost as much as Throne of Eldraine that the Magic community can't evaluate cards at all. We're so bad at it. Like, we gave it a crack and we did a solid job, right? I saw so many people say this set's terrible, it's not going to impact standard at all, and it's like we're yet to see that. That could still be generally correct, but with the power of Plum the Forbidden itself, if there was like a standard anthology where that was printed, that alone would be enough of a shift. Do you know what I mean? And then there's this whole supporting cast coming in as well. So I think in general, like people are like, "Oh, this set's one of the weakest sets for ages," and I'm like, "Yeah, but like after rotation, this is probably one of the more powerful sets." Do you know what I mean? Kaldheim's good. It has Goldspan, Dragon Alron's Epiphany. This has Sedgemoor Witch, Clever Lumimancer, Plum the Forbidden. Like, I think this is a very decent set.
Shell's nice.
And like one card I didn't even mention before is the. So I've only tried it in certain versions of Pest, but Beogroth.
Yeah.
It's Lovestruck Beast.
That's a card I want to try in my Golgari build.
Just smash face.
Like even just as like a 1 or 2 of, just because it's pretty nasty if you can turn 2 it off of a Lovestruck Beast, like Heart's Desire turn 1.
Or even better, Eye Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eye Twitch. That is another one I'm gonna try with it.
The thing I'd say about it, if you want to build a deck around it and you want to commit to 4, I think it's at its best when you put it with Call the Death Dwellers, where you can really take advantage of the fact that it's 2 CMC.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Agadeem's Awakening. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't play a Pest deck without some number of Agadeem's Awakening right now. It's free.
For me, I think Bayu needs to be in a Henge deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so like some kind of Lovestruck Beast, Eye Twitch, whatever, like playing 1/1s on your 1-drop, then playing Beogroth, and like you've got loads of good cards in Golgari right now, and they're all big dumb creatures. So you
got a theme.
Yeah.
That is the kind of frustrating thing about Pests is that Lovestruck Beast still might be the best card in the deck. Want him to be. I want him to cut it because it's boring. It's Lovestruck Beast. We've all seen it way too much.
So just to sort of like conclude all of our thoughts on the format, like, does anyone have anything that they think is obviously like quite a bit worse after it? Like, you might even have a specific reason why, but decks you're seeing less, decks that you're doing less. Go on, Jude.
I think I know what cycling. I think cycling's being bodied.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the lost episodes where it's like Callous Blood Mage is like kicking about in your Ian decks. Like, there's a bunch of things that just exile bins now.
Yeah.
But then I don't think Rogues has gotten worse. I can't tell you why, but
Rogues hasn't gotten worse, but if it misplays against either red black or green black, it can get really overwhelmed really quickly because it's not good at dealing with a lot of creatures and it doesn't get, which can be the real like.
And it can't count a Plum.
No, that's another stupid thing about Plum.
I also think that Gruul's gotten worse.
Yeah.
So Gruul was like, but it was like hanging around like 4th or 5th or whatever. I think Sultai, Teamer, and Rogues Sultai and Teamer are still really solid. Mono Red's probably in the bin.
I agree with that. That's what I was going to say for mine. Mono Ready's... right, first of all, I think people are building
Which
it wrong
sucks.
still. I think people aren't playing Hall Monitor, and they should be.
That's weird.
I've seen some, like, if you're not playing Hall Monitor, play Hall Monitor, that card's a house. I've been playing some of it on the ladder, like Ladder Faster, and it's okay, but yeah, like, all the things we've named with all these pests, and one toughness blockers, and like, card advantage, and love struck beasts, like, come on, like, yeah, I agree with you completely there.
So I think the top 2 decks probably still are Teamer and Sultai, in that order as well. And then I really don't know. I don't want to
gash yourself.
I don't want to jump on the hype train, but honestly, Rakdos might just be the absolute tits. I feel like it is the tits. But I've been playing it all week and it's been really fun. So like, my opinion of it's probably way higher than it should be, and because I made it, I'm like, it's my baby. But I don't know. I'll play with Orzhov this week. Try and break that. I would be excited to see where Magecraft goes. There'll be a version of it that is by far the best version of Magecraft, and then the other ones will just be unplayable until rotation. Which is sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah, it's facts.
And I think that's what's fun about Standard right now. We're finding out which Magecraft deck is the best one.
Yeah.
And that's like a good time to be playing. But it also means that you've got to gamble on what you spend your money on in Arena. So like, thankfully, I made a pretty big gamble. Like, I got all the Magecraft cards. Like, absolutely rinsed myself with rares, but which has paid off. And I think if I was to recommend any cards to craft this set so far, it would be Sedgemoor Witch and Plum the Forbidden.
Yeah.
Can
Go on, Toby.
I have one other deck that's not been mentioned, and it's still pretty fringe, but like, I think if the list gets worked out, there's a potential it'll be a nightmare, and that's Red White Winota. I know.
Yes.
I remember talking to you, Harry, and you were big on. You were like, Blade Historian is going to be sick in that deck. It is.
Yeah.
Third. The 2 cards that people aren't talking about as much in that deck that have really pushed it are Spellbinder.
Yeah.
Spellbinder is in that deck, and Shale.
Okay.
You play one of those whenever your Winota triggers. You've attacked with Shale, and then you just tap, and all the creatures that dissented have got 1/1 counters.
That's interesting.
I've not seen as many people doing, but I think it's worth thinking about. But Elite Spellbinder and Blade Historian have been huge for that deck, and because you're playing a Winota deck, you've got those kind of Coco rules where you have to keep your creature count really high.
Yeah.
So Rip Apart really helps that deck out in being super versatile alongside Bone Crusher Giant. Like, you're playing, you've got quite a lot of small burn spells there, and still you've got 32 creatures at your 60, or 33 even. And so I think when the correct build of Red White Winota is worked out, there's a chance it could be top tier, but it's really hard to tell with that deck.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Venerable Warsinger.
I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
No,
I would like to
I
see
mean,
it. Would be
that's
in a good place
fine.
if we did see it, but yeah.
But like,
Is that the Boros
so far,
It's a guy
you've
that's
been all
grabbing
wrong,
at stuff.
and I've been right.
Yeah, but
so...
to be fair, I haven't
No,
been
I'm
wrong because the things that I said would be good are still good. Like, I think,
in the lost episodes.
Yeah, I did.
Right.
I was the only one high on solve the equation, and I am right about that. I won't take.
I had to tell you to add Sedgemoor Witch, so...
Yeah, you did. I will give you that. I think that's more. We didn't cover Plum the Forbidden. None of us did.
No, that's on me.
And I think that's the biggest one we missed on. But in general, what I will say about Standard and Magic in general right now, I'm excited. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have real excitement, and I'm thinking about it all the time. Like, I've neglected a couple of other games. Like, I'm not thinking about Call of Duty at all, really. Like, I'm back in full Isaac
No free
Magic
ads.
mode. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't think Call of Duty needs me to say Call of Duty.
No
But
free
anyway,
ads, bro.
yeah, I'm all in on playing standard, and I think after rotation I'm going to be even more so like that. That's just. Has anyone else got any like final parting words on where they are with it? Like, Jude, do you feel similar?
I'm really liking the look of it. I think most other sets have felt like they've been a bit like pushed aside by the Eldraine cards still, but I definitely feel like this is the start of like Wizards making sets that might be able to almost compete in a sense.
They feel
I
kind of
definitely think,
complementary.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like they fit nicely together, which is which is a nice thing to see. Because I think I think this is one of the few sets that's had a lot of cards that have seemed playable.
Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what do you think, Matt?
I think that Embercleave, Great Henge, Bone Crusher, and Lovestruck Giants are broken cards that you could not know how to play Magic and still win games with them. Everything feels really strong in Strixhaven. Feels like it requires some amount of wrinkles, and like Magecraft is super explosive, but you got to time everything right. You got to pace everything right. It's like playing Storm.
Yeah.
You've got to pick your order. You've got to pick which creature you're prioritizing playing when. Is this going to be the turn where you explode, or are you going to try and get one more Leonin down before you explode? I'm glad that Wizards is encouraging that kind of play. I also think just from a design standpoint, a lot of the mechanics have a lot of promise. Magecraft is simultaneously, as we said, really good and weirdly restricted compared to prowess. I think Ward is really cool. I'm not
Ward is cool.
If Ward replaced Hexproof, I'd be happy.
It will. I think it has to, but that's like another conversation for another day. But I think I agree with all your sentiments there completely.
You could still print creatures that had like Ward 6 mana that basically have Hexproof, but then can still potentially be killed.
Yeah, I agree less with that, but like I agree with like the thought behind it. Like like it's much better than Hexproof. And Harry, mate, do you want to bring us on with some final thoughts? Because obviously you've definitely got some thoughts on the format.
I mean, so don't play mono red. If you're playing Sultai, maybe put in some solve the equations. If you want to play Magecraft, I think you should try and play Orzhov. And I think the best aggro deck is Rakdos.
Bold claim, but I think I agree. Okay then, so moving on, we're going to do the first of the weekly hot takes, and I've got a nice spicy one for everyone. So I'm just going to say it, I'm going to drop it out there. These guys haven't heard it before. This is going to become a new staple segment for the show, I think. I'm just going to drop it, and then we'll go one at a time. So I want to start with Jude on this one, because I think he'll have something to say, and then we'll go to Harry, and we'll go to Toby. But let's try and keep it succinct, and then I'll sort of fully flesh it out, and then we'll see how you feel after I've finished it, right? So this week's hot take is that I think Mystical Archive is arguably the single best thing added to a set for paper play, right, in the entire history of me playing the game. So the last 7 or 8 years of Magic, I think the Mystical Archive is the single best thing for paper play in particular, but also I think it's actively one of the best things for the game. Jude?
Interesting take for sure. I mean, it is awesome. I enjoy it completely. Like alternate art cards, and the fact that you get one in every pack is awesome. Like it's not like masterpieces where it's like you get one in every case. It's like you're looking, you're gonna get 32 in your box, which is awesome because I think almost everyone's got a favorite Mystical Archive that they want. So, and the fact that there is one in every pack means that the prices of them are gonna be nice and reasonable to an extent. So I agree completely. I think they're very, very cool.
Harry?
Honestly, I feel like I've got almost nothing to say about this. Like I don't really know much about them. Are they extra cards in the pack, and you just get
Yeah.
one extra?
So every pack
I
has
mean-
one, and it doesn't replace the rare. So it's basically always replacing a common. So if you open a mythic rare wild, like mythic mystical archive, it's in place of a common. Like.
I mean,
all the
that
time.
just seems like a good thing. But wait. Don't you get
Sorry, Dan.
weird ass limited?
You do.
So don't it ruin the format in terms of limited?
So I'll let
No.
Toby go, and then I'll flesh out what I think on
All
that.
right, that's. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna pose a question.
I do.
Don't you ruin limited?
I do think
That's-
I do think that is a good question. I think I'll let Toby answer it, but I think a lot of people's like when they saw Mystical Archive, they were like, look at how many rare wildcards it now suddenly costs to play historic, and I think that is a real downside. Like the fact that Brainstorm and Faithful Floating are all rares.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're talking about paper, right? Like
I
it's
am
different.
mostly,
It's a
but I
different
also
like.
I will say it's for the game in general. I think it's so good. So Toby, mate, do you have thoughts on that opinion, Mystical Archive?
Yeah, I actually completely agree. Like, it's the first time they've managed to pull off the alternate borders in a way that doesn't make me want to be sick. Like, masterpieces look like a nightmare. The Amonkhet ones were. I'm dyslexic.
Yeah, I can't read them either. I can't read them either.
Barely tell where the text box starts and ends. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ridiculously ugly. Like, Strixhaven did it pretty well, but I'm not a fan of that Viking aesthetic, so it didn't really do anything for me. I feel like if you're a heavy metal fan, that was the perfect thing, and then if you're not, it's kind of just fine. But I can't imagine a person not being able to find at least 5 of these that they love, and
Mhm.
the fact that they, as you said, they come at a massive variety of rarities, which is kind of a good and bad thing for Arena. I like that it's a promo that you don't need mastery orbs to get. I wanted 4 of the cool village rights. That's just 4 uncommon wildcards, easy peasy.
Yeah.
Same with Shock. And I like that Wizards is really displaying like a boldness with art that we've not seen much of, to be honest, in the last few years. Like, I feel like people think that Wizards does weird stuff with the art, but a lot of the times they just seem to make calculated mistakes and they do dumb things with the art. And like that was one of my huge problems with Kaldheim's promos, is that a lot of those promos look worse than the original art, and it feels like they weren't commissioned as promos. They were, here's the pile of potential Valky arts. Here's the one we got. Here's the promo. It was like the second choice, and they just used it. I mean, that Valky one is a particularly bad bad. But I'm just glad to see Wizards actually like trying something new with the art and pushing it in a different way. I like that they all share that yellow border, because a lot of the problems we've seen with these promos is that, for example, is it the Kaladesh ones, if I remember correctly, in paper, if it was a red card, it looked really good. If it was a white card, it looked terrible, because certain colours just complement certain styles better. And like, I do think I'll even come out and defend Faithless Looting. Like, at least they tried something really weird with it, and at least we're seeing a lot of cards that have untraditional palettes, untraditional background colours. I mean, the negate is entirely orange.
Yeah, the counter spell's
very
entirely
nice.
orange. The counter spell's entirely, yeah. I knew you'd have something to say on the art as well. Like, so what I'll say. I'm glad this isn't controversial, because I know it has been on Twitter. But like, it's not killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's killing a whole sky full of birds. It's the single best bank shot to kill 74 birds with a single sword I've ever seen in my life. Right. So.
And propeller.
Yeah, mate, it's incredible. So what this has done, right? It's a masterpiece in every pack. Last time we saw masterpieces, like, obviously not going to be as collectible because they're going to be less scarce, which is, like, I can see the case for that, right? But there's collector's boosters for that now. But regardless, right? You get one in every pack, but it's doing the same thing masterpieces did with regular set card prices, where everything's suppressed. So, like, if you go on Magic Card Market right now, the most expensive card is like €12. Like, Do you know what I mean? Like, in other sets, it's 30, it's 40. Like, this set is now, if a card explodes in popularity, it's only ever going to be 25 because so much of the set's eventual value is held in the demonic tutors and the tainted packs and even like the fables looting and brainstorms. I think, you know, introducing this has now made Pioneer a better format because now people don't say why would I not just play historic, and it's like, because mate, like, you know, it's probably broken now, which isn't good, but it's very different. Like, people said it's the same format, now it's a whole world apart. Like, it's an unrecognizable format from before.
Yeah.
You know, that's beautifully elegant. And then as well, you're reprinting these staples. Like, demonic tutor has it. Like, someone who's brand new to Magic could get a pack and open a demonic tutor and be like, sick, like, I can't play with this, what can I do with it? And someone there will buy it off of them on the spot for £15 or £20 or whatever it settles at, and they can go buy standard staples. Like, I think what Harry asked about, does it make limited shit? Like, that's a risk, and if you do a bad job of it, it makes limited shit. But also it makes it very interesting and varied. Like, if you're not guaranteed to pick it first because you might get a revitalize or you might get a time warp, like, you know, like, it makes limited interesting because whenever someone opened the masterpiece in limited, it was interesting because it's like, right, they've got a really impactful card, like, what they're gonna do with it. But it happened if you drafted the set every week, it happened once or twice to you. This is like, it's someone can open a demonic tutor in limited and play it, and it won't be very good, but you'll have that cool story. Like, and I think the Japanese versions are all gorgeous as well. Like, I think, you know, I think Toby can speak to this, but giving two artists the exact same briefing and seeing their interpretations of it, and it being so radically different, such a cool idea. Do you have any opinions on the Japanese ones, Toby?
I mean, again, I think for the most part they're all great. There are a few standouts that I think look a bit dodgy, a little bit. I know that, again, this is just my opinion, but a little bit too anime. I think the ones that lean further back on traditional Japanese art,
Demonic tutor.
Crux of Fate, look incredible.
Divine Gambit looks incredible.
Like, that's the thing that I love, is that they've done a really good job. I also, like, one thing I want to say is that these, compared to the masterpieces, like, if you're a casual player and you open one of these, the best of these cards, and you decide to chuck it in your EDH deck, you might annoy your friends with a natural order, but you've not got what's the 0 mana make 2 mana crypt.
Yeah.
Not in a casual group with a mana crypt in your deck. Like, these feel like the best engineered choices for new players as well, where you get these really cool EDH one-offs. Like, you imagine like wanting to start an EDH deck, you've come into Strixhaven and you pull like a Mizzix Mastery.
Yeah.
And you got Mizzix Mastery art, and you save yourself like that's not an easy card to find, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's in one commander deck.
Yeah. Order and what were the other ones that are like? I mean, and I'm incredibly glad just to see Teferi's Protection reprinted, because that card was a mistake to begin with for EDH, because nothing that powerful should be put into one deck and only available through that deck. But I'm just glad it's got a new art. I mean, I can see with Channel potentially and Mind Desire for like ruining friendship groups, but I mean, the level I'm talking about, the worst thing you're going to channel into is a bookworm.
Yeah, so I think you know, I'm glad it wasn't that controversial, to be honest. I think, you know,
I
obviously
mean, Channel
on
is
Twitter,
banned in Commander, so you won't be playing it. But...
in Twitter, on Twitter, you will always see the horrible opinions, but I think, like, you know, it's very good for the game, and I think all of us will probably want to get, like, I know, like, I'm assuming Harry wants some shocks, be it Japanese or regular. I want 4 foiled Duresses in the Japanese art, and I want negates, and I probably want shocks, and I think I want opts. Like, you know, I'm excited to collect these. I don't collect Magic cards. I'm very, you know, distance from that. Like, you know, does anyone have anyone in particular they're going to grab? Like, anything that comes to mind?
I already have. I crafted 4 Village Rites. It's my favorite art. I love the way the purple pops out.
The Japanese Inquisition is very nice. Like, it's quite a simplistic art, but I really like it.
Yeah, both.
I mean, to be fair, the English Inquisition art is pretty sweet. So.
Oh, sorry. There's one Japanese art that I think is like. Oh yeah, you mentioned it, Demonic Tutor. That one is That one I think might be one of the best looking promos ever done.
I like
It is incredible.
quick shout out to Japanese Claim the Firstborn as well. I love that art.
Yeah.
Is so good. Like I wanted, so like just a quick aside. Like I really wanted to make a meme with that because it's got such high meme potential. That's in the back of my head now. But anyway, so glad we all agree on that. I think what we'll do is go on, Toby.
You guys looked at the Japanese brainstorm art.
Yeah, I don't particularly like that.
It's a cat getting scared of lightning. That's so dumb. Why are there so many cats in the Japanese one?
I'm not sure. So I think what we'll do is we'll quickly close it on the Keep On Mull. We'll do a quick 2-minute discussion on it, and then we'll let you guys in the audience, so whoever's watching it, people from RF and whatever, please hit us up in the comments with your opinions on the hand. We'll just give a quick overview. So this hand is from Sultai. You're seeing it on the screen now. This is from an actual game that I had. I believe I was on the play against Rogues. I didn't know it at the time, but let's say you do know it's open deck list. It's game 1 on the play against Rogues. And the hand, you guys can see it. I'll read it for your audio listeners. You've got 2 Zagoth Triarm, 2 Clearwater Pathway, and then you have 3 spells, which are Cultivate, Elspeth's Nightmare, and Emergent Ultimatum. So yeah, I won't say what I did, but I think I think it's a very interesting one. Obviously, being on the play and being against one of your worst matchups. We all had different thoughts about it when we first brought it up. So Harry, mate, just quick, let's just 60 seconds. What do you think about the hand?
Mullish, you don't have a turn 2 play, and you're never casting that ultimatum. So go get another one.
Jude?
Yeah, I had pretty similar ideas to Harry there. Like, I think having the ultimatum in your opening hand against Rogues already feels like a mulligan, so you might as well take the mulligan.
Toby?
Not played enough, never played Sultai Yorian. Really don't know what the hands look like. Hate the deck. Got no opinions. I'd be interested for anybody that comments like that. If you didn't know what your opponents was playing, would you keep that hand?
I think you would.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
Would you change your mind, or would you feel differently if you saw a Yorian or a Luris companion?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'd be interested to hear what people think of that. Like,
I think
man.
I think knowing it's Rogues, I would probably mulligan, but even then, I think it's closer than we give it credit for. I think if that Elspeth Nightmare sticks, it's a big if, obviously, but you are on the play, so obviously on turn 2 they might commit to the board. They might
to clarify, like you probably would see Luris in the companion zone.
But you can't assume you would see it and you would have it in the back of your mind. You wouldn't know for sure, but if sticking the Elspeth's Nightmare against Rogues is very, very good. Like, it's very good. It's one of your better cards. I do tend to agree with Harry. If I didn't know, I would probably mulligan and try and get one of those eliminates, because if they have a Soaring Thought Thief draw, you just lose. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. So yeah, I'd love to hear some discussion about it. So if I know Tom watches these. If Tom, mate, if you've got an opinion on this hand, I'd love to hear what you think. 'Cause I'm sure you'll have an opinion.
Tell us why we suck.
Yeah, tell us why we're wrong and we're idiots. That'd be great.
Tell me why that wins.
one thing I would say is, like, I've played a lot of Rogues, and Elspeth's Nightmare might be one of the hardest cards to beat for the deck.
Yeah.
Turn 3, you lose every creature in your deck other than Luris, obviously, unless you've got but you lose most of the creatures in your deck. Then they take one of your either one of your best counter spells, or you're shitting into the story out of your hand, and then Agadine's Awakening becomes useless.
Yeah.
It feels worse than playing against History and Benalia did at times. For a 3-mana.
I think it's very close, but yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think of it. But and we'll definitely, if we do get any interesting discussion on that, we'll bring it up next week and we'll discuss that. But for the episode, I think we had a really good discussion about Strixhaven. I think we're all happy with the state of Magic, which is not something we can always say. But yeah, thanks again to Toby and Jude for coming on. Always provided with us with like good discussion and ideas to bounce off of. And just big congratulations to Harry, obviously being like on the cusp of top 150, and hopefully he'll get to that top 100 and he'll start smashing some pro players and proving that it's not, this podcast isn't just us idiots having a go about Magic. We have something to contribute, and I'm really
a bronze god.
Cheers, guys.
All right, cheers, guys.